Mark Carney, the former governor of the Bank of Canada turned high-profile political figure, has issued an increasingly urgent message to Canadians. The country is entering a period of fiscal restraint, one that will require careful planning, strategic decision-making, and acceptance of difficult choices across a range of government programs. Welcome viewers to my channel. Please subscribe, like my video and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. Alongside Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne, Carney has warned that the government may soon implement austerity measures in order to balance near-record defense spending, reductions to federal programs, and ongoing trade tensions with the United States. The combination of these factors has created a high-stakes environment in which fiscal prudence and political strategy must be carefully intertwined. Carney's warning comes amid months of private consultations with senior ministers in preparation for the fall budget, where discussions have reportedly focused on identifying areas of the federal bureaucracy that could be streamlined or restructured. While Carney has reassured Canadians that essential programs, including healthcare funding, education transfers, and direct transfers to individuals, will remain intact, he has emphasized that there is little room for unchecked spending in other areas. This budget will combine austerity with investment, and that can only happen if we exercise discipline, he remarked, emphasizing the government's desire to strike a balance between fiscal responsibility and strategic growth. The former central banker's comments represent a marked departure from the policies of his predecessor, Justin Trudeau, whose administration presided over a period of significant government spending aimed at stimulating economic growth, funding social programs, and addressing urgent societal needs. Carney has argued that the rate of government expenditure under Trudeau outpaced the growth of Canada's economy, creating structural imbalances that now demand attention. Several senior cabinet ministers, many of whom served under Trudeau, reportedly share Carney's concerns, signaling a rare consensus that fiscal discipline is essential for maintaining economic stability. Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne articulated the government's vision in clear terms, noting that Canadians should be prepared for difficult decisions in the coming months. Are there difficult decisions ahead? Absolutely. But are Canadians ready? I believe so. After all, they elected us to do things differently, Champagne said during a recent press briefing. He highlighted that the move toward a leaner federal workforce is not merely about cutting costs but about reallocating resources to areas deemed essential for national growth, infrastructure, and security. Our message is clear: we will spend less in some areas so we can invest more in others. People understand that. My own mother understands that, he added, using humor to make a serious message more relatable to the public. Despite promises of restraint in some areas, Carney has pledged a significant increase in defense spending and a faster pace for major infrastructure projects, both of which will require billions in government investment. In June, he confirmed that Canada would reach NATO's 2% military spending target within the current fiscal year, 5 years ahead of the originally projected schedule. This demonstrates the government's commitment to both international obligations and national security, even as other areas of government face cuts or restructuring. Elizabeth McCallion, a political science professor at the University of Toronto, offered insight into the political strategy behind these policy shifts. The Liberals have earned a reputation as Canada's natural governing party, because they adapt their policies to shifting voter preferences rather than adhering rigidly to ideology, she said. Unlike the Conservatives on the right or the New Democrats on the left, the Liberals excel at navigating the center, adjusting their messaging to capture voter support wherever it is strongest. McCallion emphasized that the party's pivot toward austerity and its departure from Trudeau-era investments in progressive programs should not be viewed as erratic. The Liberals act like chameleons, adapting to the political environment to optimize outcomes. They know when to emphasize fiscal prudence and when to highlight social investment. It's a calculated strategy designed to maintain political dominance, she explained. However, these strategic shifts pose challenges for Carney, particularly as he navigates the delicate balance between domestic fiscal responsibility and international diplomacy. During the April federal election, Carney campaigned on a platform promising to defend Canadian interests from external threats, particularly those posed by former U.S. President Donald Trump. The campaign emphasized a proactive stance against potential U.S. economic aggression, reflecting widespread public concern over trade and sovereignty issues. Yet the reality of Canada's deeply intertwined economic relationship with its southern neighbor necessitates a more measured approach, one that protects Canadian interests without escalating tensions unnecessarily. There's a tension in Carney's public persona, McCallion noted. On one hand, he is expected to defend Canadian interests vigorously. On the other, he must avoid escalating conflicts with a key trading partner, where a confrontational stance could have serious economic repercussions. Carney is attempting to walk a fine line between assertiveness and restraint, balancing political messaging with economic pragmatism. In August, Carney's government demonstrated this careful balance by removing several retaliatory tariffs in a gesture of goodwill toward the United States. The move was part of ongoing negotiations and reflected an understanding of the economic reality. The U.S. remains Canada's largest trading partner, accounting for more than 70% of exports. While some critics argued that removing tariffs could be seen as a concession, proponents contended that it was a pragmatic step toward stabilizing trade relations and protecting Canada's long-term economic interests. Jean-Marc Leger, a prominent Canadian pollster, highlighted that public opinion on trade has shifted in recent months, influencing government priorities. Last year, tariffs and trade tensions were the top issue for voters, contributing to the Liberal government's election victory, Leger explained. Today, Canadians are more concerned with the overall economy, including job growth, inflation, and wage stability. Carney's team is making economic performance the centerpiece of their strategy, which reflects a nuanced reading of voter priorities. The challenge for Carney is to reconcile promises of fiscal restraint with commitments to significant investment in defense and infrastructure. This dual mandate requires careful communication to ensure Canadians understand that austerity and investment are not mutually exclusive but are instead complementary strategies designed to secure long-term economic stability. One particularly controversial episode involved Carney inviting Kevin Roberts, president of the Heritage Foundation, a conservative U.S. think tank with close ties to the White House, to address a ministerial meeting. The Heritage Foundation was a central architect of Project 2025, an initiative proposing an ultra-conservative reshaping of the U.S. federal government. Although Roberts ultimately canceled his appearance, the invitation sparked debate within the Liberal Party, raising questions about engagement with figures aligned with opposing political ideologies. Inviting someone from the opposing side is a strategic move, McCallion explained. It allows the government to gain insight into U.S. policy priorities and understand which demands are serious versus those that may be distractions. In a volatile political environment, this kind of engagement can be critical for informed decision-making. Carney's approach reflects a sophisticated understanding of both domestic and international politics. By signaling fiscal restraint while emphasizing strategic investments and cautiously managing relations with the United States, he seeks to navigate an increasingly complex landscape where domestic expectations and international pressures collide. The government's strategy embodies an attempt to balance fiscal responsibility, voter priorities, national security, and economic diplomacy in a way that is rarely straightforward. Historically, Canada has faced similar periods where balancing austerity with strategic investment was politically contentious. Efforts to streamline government operations while simultaneously funding essential infrastructure and defense initiatives are not new, yet the stakes today are arguably higher given the global economic context and the unpredictability of U.S. foreign and trade policy. Citizens are being asked to understand that some programs may be curtailed or restructured to free resources for high-priority investments, a message that requires careful political framing to ensure public support. Carney's vision also underscores a broader trend toward evidence-based governance in Canada, emphasizing strategic allocation of resources over politically expedient spending. By framing austerity and investment as complementary rather than opposing strategies, the government is attempting to redefine public understanding of fiscal responsibility and long-term planning. This balancing act is further complicated by the Liberals' need to maintain electoral legitimacy while navigating policy shifts. Adjusting priorities to reflect voter concerns demonstrates political agility but also carries the risk of being perceived as inconsistent. Carney's statements and policy moves suggest a conscious effort to communicate a coherent narrative. Fiscal restraint in some areas enables targeted investment in critical priorities, from defense to infrastructure to economic